My name is Dr. Dennis Edwards. I have a few slides for you here today, and I hope to leave enough time for questions. In fact, I'll definitely make sure I leave enough time for questions. But there we go. Yeah. So, to give you a little background on myself, I'm originally from Western Kentucky. I graduated from Murray State University in 1995, and I did major in economics. I got my master's degree also in economics from LSU in 1999, and then I got my PhD also from LSU in 2002 with specialties in international economics, monetary theory, and econometrics. Basically, this is the typical roadmap that someone would follow if he or she wished to go ahead and essentially do what I do, which is be a college professor and educate students, and that is one of my favorite things, quite frankly. I really love to be in front of a classroom. I love interacting with college students, and I have not regretted my career path. I can honestly tell you that. And what I'm going to talk with you about today, some of the things that you could find yourselves doing if you decided to major in economics, if you decided to maybe go to law school, or maybe if you wanted to do what I've ended up doing here. This is a way that you can get started. And I thought I would start out with kind of a simple slide. What jobs do economists have? Because a lot of people aren't familiar with economics, or they think that economics is only about money. And while that certainly does play a role, economics is really all about another way of thinking. And that way of thinking can open up a ton of avenues for you. And just some of these items that do, of course, deal with money, like banking, insurance, and personal finance and whatnot. But also, it could lead you into other areas such as management or law or, like I said, becoming a professor. We have had two graduates, pretty recent graduates, and by that I mean within the last 5 years, that have decided to go on into law school. One is at Georgetown, in fact, which of course I'm sure you know is a very, very prestigious law school. And the other one decided to go to a smaller law school in Virginia. And we have also had one of our graduates go to the London School of Economics, which is the premier graduate school in the entire world. So we have little Coastal Carolina University, right? Have really, really been lucky in some of the graduates that we've gotten to place. And I'll talk more about where some of our graduates have ended up here a little bit later. All right, well, I know that everybody's interested in how much you maybe can make when you get out of here. That was the same thing that I thought when I was sitting where you are. What can I earn with an economics degree? Well, here are some various positions and the median incomes that I found, and I sourced it here for you. It's from a website called collegetransfer.net. I looked at other websites, and they say similar things with similar salary ranges. And as you see, some of these, yeah, they do deal with money, but not quite all of them. Being a consultant or marketing analyst, can't lie that dollar signs might be in there, but maybe it's not all about investing and things of that nature like some of these other positions are. And you'll see that the salaries for economics majors are pretty good. I mean, they're not bad at all. And these, like I said, are median pay, so some salaries are even above this. Now, as you see, the financial advisor at $115,000 and the business consultant at $105,000, well, yeah, you can make that. But, of course, probably not to start with. I have a little saying that I give my students all the time, that you have to crawl before you can walk. And before anyone is going to pay you that kind of money to consult on things, they're going to want to see what kind of experience that you've had. So, yeah, you'll probably have to get a start a starter job, an entry-level job in one of those that are maybe $40,000 or $50,000 a year. But then after you have experience over time, build yourself up, get a little bit of that on-the-job training. That's true for any discipline out there. On-the-job training is very important, probably just as much important as your college education, and that training will be. And you get more established in your career, absolutely you'll be able to pull down salaries of that nature. Just as a data gatherer that I did when I was in graduate school, because I would gather data for other consultants and lawyers who didn't have the time to dig in and get that data for themselves. So I was making things along the lines of $75 an hour just to gather data. Now, granted, that wasn't 40 hours a week, all right? But for 8 to 10 hours of gathering data, making some pretty good money. So that is something that maybe, with a little luck and a whole lot of hard work, you could find yourselves in a similar situation. All right, well, let's say that you are interested in economics. You are interested maybe in one of those disciplines that came up earlier. Well, how can you major in economics here at CCU? Well, if you all are business majors, which I'm presuming that most of you are, or at least leaning that way, then as a business major, you will already have taken Econ 201 and Econ 202 typically in your sophomore year. Now, these are what we call our principles classes. All right, these are basically introductory level courses. The Economics 201 is what we call Introduction to Macroeconomics. That article that I ran off for you, that has macroeconomics in it. And that's the kind of stuff you would talk about: the federal budget, fiscal policy, monetary policy, inflation, production, GDP, recessions, things like that. Those are the kinds of topics that we cover in macroeconomics, stuff that you would tend to hear on the news and so forth. And Econ 202, that's your Principles of Microeconomics class. And that's when you might talk about things like the cigarette tax, or taxes on alcohol, or why are we trying to limit pollution? All right, things called externalities and pollution permits trading and things like that. Topics that deal more with individual markets instead of the overall picture like macro does. And just FYI, I am macro. That's what I do, and that's why I selected an article like that. Well, so you'll have those 6 hours anyway, and then you're going to need the following 9 hours, which are all required. You'll have your Econ 301 and 302, which are the intermediate levels of the macro and micro sequence from earlier. And then our capstone course, which is, you could either take Econ 490, which is a senior research seminar, or Econ 495, which means you are working with our Center for Economic Research and Development here at CCU on a project or a research paper, something along those lines. I have taught the 495 class a couple of times, and one of those times, I believe it was in 2007, when I taught that course with 4 of our graduating seniors, we did a project paper and we got that paper published. So undergraduate students are now published authors. So maybe you could, if you got a really good project or something like that, you could follow in those kinds of footsteps. So you got those 9 hours that are required on top of the 6 that you have to take anyway, and then we require an additional 9 hours, and those can be any 300 level or above elective. And basically, it's your choice, completely your choice, complete freedom on what you might like to take based on your interests. And one of the great things about our program here at CCU is that we have a ton of electives, and some of that I'll get to here in a second. But why should you major in economics then? All right, let's presume that some of it is interesting to you. All right, so let's go beyond the interest. Well, first of all, here at CCU anyway, we've had a growing popularity with the major. We have not had any kind of attrition yet. We are continuing to increase our number of majors each year. So it is a growing major in popularity, and we've had it since 2004. When I first got to Coastal in 2002, we didn't have an economics major, but it was on the drawing board. And we finally got it passed in 2004. And so in 9 years, we've still had a positive increase in majors, and really it doesn't show any signs of slowing down. And then after the 2008 financial crisis, which I'm sure you probably remember your parents talking about and hearing on the news all the time, more and more people wanted to know about economics. Why did we get into this mess? How did we get into this mess? How are we getting out of it? Those were all questions that people wanted answers to. Not just simply people at the government level and above, but the average, everyday person who goes to work, has a family. They wanted to know what was going on with this crisis and how could it possibly be averted, and how can I can make it where it won't affect me as much maybe next time around. So a lot of people started asking questions and wanting to know about the economy. And here at CCU, our class sizes for those upper level courses are very small. So we will know who you are and how we can help you. If you have a math weakness, if you have a weakness in some of the language that we use, we can zero in on the individual student maybe a little bit better than majors that have a large number of students. We are still pretty small in our upper level electives. The principals classes, about 40 to 60 students in those, so that's your typical course. But an upper level economics class, this would be a big class. This would be a very big class for upper level econ. 300 and above. There's no way we would see a class this big in all likelihood. We're talking around usually between 8 to 15 students. So that means the student to professor ratio is very, very small, and those small class sizes typically lend themselves to a lot better education, at least in my opinion. Because then we can know who you are. Instead of calling you student 089246, we can call you by your name, and we can, like I said, maybe hit those weak spots early and fix them. So we have that advantage as well of small class sizes. My upper level elective this semester, I have 2 macro principles and international economics, and the international economics class has 15. And like I said, that's a pretty big class. So what are some of those electives? All right, well, like I said, we offer a very, very wide array of classes that will hopefully pique your interests. We have money and banking. So like I said, yeah, economics does have some money in it, of course, but it's not all about that. But we do have a course that's solely devoted to money and banking in the U.S. economy. We have courses like environmental economics for those people who might be interested in that kind of field, where you're talking about fisheries and such. Dr. Yoav Vaxman teaches that course for us here. Pollution, how it affects those areas and so forth. We have a government and business course. This is sort of like a social and economic responsibility that businesses have, or should they have that responsibility? And we asked that question as well. Economics of tourism, which, as you might guess, is pretty popular here in the Myrtle Beach area especially. And Dr. Weinbach's economics of sports class is very, very popular. It's one of the upper level courses that tends to be on the larger size, because that class is also in sports management curriculum and things of that nature, so it has some cross-disciplinary attraction there too. Economics of energy, like energy crises from the 1970s, and of course why are gas prices so high today? Those are questions that are answered in the Econ 333 class. And then we have economics of entrepreneurship for those who might be interested in starting their own business one day. And this is my aforementioned international economics class. I also teach these 2 courses here as well, U.S. fiscal policy and economics and national security. This is a pretty popular class with the students. We talk about terrorism, we talk about torture, we talk about economic sanctions, third world debt relief, economic policy during wartime. this is a course that's an elective in the National Security major at CCU, which is taught out of the Edwards building. So that tends to be a pretty popular class. So we've got this, like I said, we have this wide availability of what we feel, anyway, are very interesting courses. And we don't direct you into a course just to fill a box. I mean, these courses are offered quite often. They're not offered every semester because we don't have the personnel for that, but they are offered quite often, and it gives you that complete freedom to take those 9 hours of electives in a path that you think would be best for what you want to do in your career. Because like I said, economics is really about a different way of thinking. It's thinking analytically, and it's looking at these problems in ways that maybe other disciplines do not. Not necessarily better, just different ways. So, how can I succeed in the economics major? Let's say that this has piqued your interest and you would like to major in economics. So you start the sequence and you are now on your way to the intermediate level. How can you succeed in that sophomore, junior period of your college education? Well, take some math. All right, there is no way around this. All right, you need to take some math. And it's okay to take more than just what is simply required. You definitely need to get up to that Math 132 level. That's business calculus. And quite frankly, it wouldn't hurt you to go ahead and maybe try to take up to Math 160, especially if you have a desire to go beyond the bachelor's degree. If you think economics is for you and you are really interested in it and you want to do what it is that economists truly do, you want to get in there and you want to try to shape policy. You want to try to get that job one day where you're behind the ear of the Secretary of the Treasury or the Chairman of the Federal Reserve giving advice. Well, you're going to need to go to graduate school for those kinds of jobs. And to go to graduate school in economics, you're going to need math. I had 2 math classes at Murray State, and I went right to graduate school after that, and I was woefully unprepared. And I was pretty good at math. But I was still woefully unprepared for things like differential equations, matrix algebra, all right, constrained optimization, some of those things. And I would give anything if I would have taken more math. So, certainly, take some math. Learn all aspects of supply and demand. All right, a lot of people who criticize economics, they say that if you get supply and demand, you understand all of economics. That might be a little simplistic, but I can't argue with the speck of truth that might be in that. Supply and demand is something that we talk about in economics from the 3rd week of class of your first course all the way through the last one, all the way through the capstone. Supply and demand is incredibly important. So, if you know all of the factors that can influence the demand for a product, all the factors that can influence the supply of a product, and what would happen when some of those factors change, either one at a time or multiple changes at the same time. The supply and demand model there, its predictive ability will help you anticipate what could happen to the price of the product. And that's a big, big thing. So if you're listening to the news one day and they're talking about Middle East uprisings and how it's getting worse in Syria and terrorism is going up in the Middle East and the OPEC nations are thinking of restricting supplies, then this might lead you to think, you know what, if the supply of oil is going to start to be disrupted because of all that stuff going on in the Middle East, then that might raise the price of oil. And if the price of oil goes up, I'll probably have to pay more gasoline prices at the pump, higher price. That's what supply and demand is. Trying to talk out these various problems that hit the world and how it can affect your pocketbook. Third, work hard. And of course, if I were in here talking about marketing or management or marine science or any of those, I would have put this down. You really need to work hard. You've got to differentiate yourself from your colleagues. All right? You've got to stand out somehow. Because when you apply for that dream job especially, The HR manager at that dream job is probably going to be looking at 100 resumes that are just like yours. So you've got to have something on that resume that stands out. And a high GPA will help. A higher GPA in your major will help a little bit more. Maybe some experience for some of you who have gotten a job while you're going to college. Something along those lines. But that's going to require hard work. Ask questions. And notice I've got this one capped. You can't be shy. There is nothing worse. All right, I've been teaching for 16 years. That was the first time I got behind a classroom, all right, when I was 23 years old at LSU. There is nothing worse for a student to do than to sit there and not know. Economics is one of those disciplines where this is much more true, perhaps, because economics builds on itself. So if you don't have the foundation down in those two principles courses, if you squeaked by with C's, and we keep building on top of that, on top of that, on top of that, because I'm the 301 instructor, and when you get into my class, on the second day, we're doing stuff that you did in the 6th and 7th week in principles. I don't have time to go back through those first 7 weeks for you. So if you didn't know it then, you're sure as the world not going to know it in 301. So the minute something looks a little strange to you, ask questions. Remember, your professor is here to help you. Go to office hours. We have an economics lab here for the principal students that's manned by economics majors. All right? Go there. Ask them a question. They are wanting to help. It's free. So utilize all of these resources and please read the textbook. All right? We assign that for a reason. I mean, you will be amazed at the number of times that I've asked a student, well, have you read this chapter yet? No. All right, well, of course it might be a little tough then for you if you haven't read the chapter. Don't count on just getting by on the lecture. So ask those questions. It's very, very important. Be prepared to think outside the box. Quite frankly, I hate that expression because it's overused. But economics is, and this goes into the last point as well, it is like learning another language. We have special terminology. All right? We don't say satisfaction, we say utility. We don't say responsiveness, we say elasticity. All right, so it is like another language. All right, it reminds me of that Steve Martin comment where he said, I tried to learn Spanish once, but they've got a different word for everything. All right, well, economics is kind of like that too. And it is another way of thinking. And by that I mean we're trying to not only figure out how we can get from point A to point B. Sometimes we wonder if we can start at point B and make our way back to A. Looking at these things both forward and backward. New ways to look at problems. Different ways to look at problems. If we've already put $800,000 into a new bridge construction, but the bridge is anticipated not to make the money that we thought it would, should we keep finishing the bridge? Or should we cut our losses and think of something else? All right? Fixed costs, variable costs. Well, those fixed costs they shouldn't matter to the current decisions that we're making now. They're fixed, they're sunk, we can't get them back. So we got to make decisions based on the moment and what we think is coming, not on what just happened. But you'd be amazed at how many people would say, no, we need to finish the bridge. We've already put $800,000 into this bridge. We need to finish it. Do you? All right, you can't be afraid to turn the page. Who is here to help you succeed? We have at CCU one of the best support staffs I've ever seen. Now, I've taught at LSU, I taught at Center College, and this is my 11th year here, but we have a very, very good support staff. A personal friend of mine, Dr. Kenneth Small, he is one of our assistant deans, and he's the assistant dean of students. And he is very knowledgeable about our curriculum. And I talk to him 4 or 5 times a week. He is a fantastic person and very, very smart. Miss Frances Richmond, there in the back, she works in the Wall Center. She used to be here in the College of Business before she went over to Prince Hall, and then last year she came back over to the Wall College of Business, and we were very happy that she decided to do that. And we have other academic advisors in the Wall Center who are here to help as well. Miss Penny Bell, Miss Jamie Davis, and Miss Kara Schur. And on the accounting, economics, and finance side, that's all one department. So we are with the accounting and finance folks as well in our department. Our administrative assistant is Miss Bobby Yerkin. And all of these people are here to help. And also at the faculty level, the people who are here to help you succeed are as follows. I have these in order of seniority. And John Marcis, he is professor of economics. And then you have me as professor of economics. Dr. Yoav Voxman, he's been here 10 years. This is his 10th year. I think Dr. Marcis has been here 15 or 16 years. I've been 11. Yoav has been here 10. Dr. Andrew Weinbach, he is one of our most prolific researchers here in the Wall College. He's the one that does the economics of sports class. I believe he's been here he's been here longer than that. I think it's about 7 or 8 years actually. Dr. Robert Salvino, he's been here 6 years. And in fact, Dr. Weinbach and Dr. Salvino are going to be promoted for the next year. So their ranks will increase. These are the rankings at this time. We have like rankings kind of like they do in the military. And so they will move up in rank from this last promotion cycle. Mr. Kenrick Jordan, he's brand new. This is his first year. He's one of our full-time lecturers. He is a great guy. I was there on his interview, and he's a really entertaining, knowledgeable fellow. He worked at a bank in Canada for many years, so he's got a lot of that real-world experience. And I will admit to my students, I don't have real-world experience. I'm an academic through and through. I went from kindergarten all the way through to PhD with no break. So I am the die-hard academic, all right? I pontificate from my ivory tower, all right? But I do a lot of research and try to understand that real world, but I'm a public policy guy. All right? I'm not really a business professor, quite frankly. I'm what we call a political economist. I look at things like economic policy and try to explain that, and that's where the academic background helps me a lot. I haven't been in the trenches, so to speak. But Kenrick's got a lot of that real-world experience. Plus, we have several other part-time lecturers who are here to help you, who teach 1 or 2 classes, and we hear good things about their classes also. So your faculty will want to do everything they can. Also, join the Economics Club. I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, the Economics Club received the university's Most Outstanding Club Award due to a food drive for Iraqi children. And of course, this was in the wake of the violence that was going on, the sectarian violence in Iraq at that time. And they organized a massive food drive and sent these over to Iraq, sent all these food items, and got a lot of press out of that too. And this is where you get to interact with people who have the same interests as you. And also you can act as a support system. Let's be honest, you really can't maybe do this by yourself. You need a support system. You just need somebody to talk to sometimes. Can you believe Edwards' exam? Oh my gosh, that thing was out of this world. All right, you need those sounding boards. You need somebody to work on homework with. All right, those will help you. And the Economics Club is where you can make some of these contacts. And they sometimes bring in also area speakers, bankers or real estate executives or something like that to tell you what it is they do and how they got to their current positions. And try to become eligible for Omicron Delta Epsilon. That is our Economics Honor Society. That's the International Honor Society, ODE. And you're going to need things like a B average, pretty strong GPA, and once you pay the dues, it's like a lifetime membership. I don't know what the current due schedule is right now, but it does similar things as the Economics Club. It brings in speakers sometimes and so forth and act as another support system. So something like that would also help you succeed. All right, where have some of our CCU graduates in economics gone? We had one student who was married and still wanted to live in the area and went into banking in Murrells Inlet. We had another student who was in that same graduating class, went into the marketing management field in Washington, D.C. I mentioned the 2 law school students that we had earlier. We have some students in graduate school. Clemson, we had a couple in the PhD program there. And my alma mater, Murray State, we have someone there right now who is about ready to finish up her 2nd year. And she was a very bright student, and we keep in touch even to this day. And the chairman of the department at Murray State, who wasn't there when I matriculated there, but called me up and said, if you have anybody that is like this girl, send them to us. So, I mean, she has absolutely knocked their socks off there, and they have she has impressed them so much that they are organizing for her through special dispensations and such for her to take more math so that they can direct her to a PhD program. They want her to go to that next level. She's in the master's program at Murray right now. And then one of our graduates got a master's degree in social development at the London School of Economics. One of our economics majors, in fact, one of our very first ones from the 2004 period, came back actually and wanted to get an accounting degree as well. And this is one student who could succeed, quite frankly, in anything she wanted to. And she sat for the CPA exam and passed all 4 sections on her first try. That's almost unheard of. And there's some economics on the CPA exam, and I'm sure she probably belted that out, having her degree. But so she is on the upper Midwest right now. And again, all of this is since 2004. And we've placed other graduates in local jobs and so forth. And admittedly, we've lost touch with some of our graduates when they've moved on from their first job. But that's something that hopefully we're going to be able to rectify through Dr. Small and the Wall Center, trying to maybe track down some of our old graduates. Right now, we are working on a double major in economics and political science. That's going to be called political economy. I'm one of the professors who's trying to put that together. And our chair, Dr. Marvin Keene, and over in politics, the chair there, Dr. Holly Tankersley, they're the ones that are really taking the lead on that. I'm just a support role. But we're going to call that major political economy. So since there is a big overlap in economics and politics, because that's how economic policy is made, we think there's going to be a lot of interest in such a degree. So we're putting that together. And we also currently have the Bachelor of Arts in Economics. Right now, the Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration is the one that I went through with you because, again, presumably most of you were business majors or at least interested in that avenue. But if you decide to change your major or something along those lines but still think economics is for you, we have this degree that's Bachelor of Arts in Economics for the non-business majors. So you won't take as many business classes, you'll still take a couple, but you'll take various cognates that are maybe related to economics, like law and things of that nature. If you decide that business maybe isn't for you. And look, speaking of this, it's okay to change your major when you're in college. You're looking at someone who did. All right, when I got to Murray, my first 2 years, I was going to be an accountant. And at Murray State, you have to take 9 hours of economics at the bachelor's level. And I was into my 3rd economics class, as well as my 3rd accounting class, and I realized I was going to miss the economics. So I changed my major from accounting to economics, broke my father's heart because he's an accountant. But it was a decision that I made and didn't look back. And then, like I said, in '95, I went straight to LSU and started working on the graduate programs there. So yeah, you can change your major. It's completely fine. Sometimes it might set you back some time. All right, another semester, maybe another year, depending on how far along you were in your other major and if a lot of those classes don't cross over. But remember, life is long. All right, we talk about how life is short a lot of times, and maybe in one context it is, but life is very long. And if you remember, fixed costs are irrelevant to current decision making. And if you find yourself in a degree program or in a job that you don't like, just because you already invested 3 years of college into that degree program, well, remember, can you ask yourself, am I going to be doing this? Do I want to do this for the next 45 years? So maybe a year extra in college for changing your major to something that you love and something that you think you can get a great job in, that's the second part. It's got to be a marketable degree. Well, maybe it's worth that little extra time here now so that you can be happy over those next 45 years. And that's the end of my presentation. Like I said, I wanted to leave some time for questions. Looks like we've got about 12, 13 minutes or so. Yes?
Can you be a double major? Can you be like management major and economics major?
You can. In fact, I have a couple of advisees right now who are that very thing. I have one who's a double major in economics and marketing and another who's a double major in economics and management. So, yeah, go ahead.
Because some of them, they cross to the same courses, so how do they work?
You have to take discrete hours. So you can't take a course that will count across the board, so to speak. In management, their major, now they have all those different tracks too. So that's something new that they've started. Management has like 6 tracks: an international management track, an entrepreneurship track, technology track. So they have a lot of different tracks. And you have to, I believe it's 18 hours. You have to take 18 hours in that major. But the good part is, especially as early as you all are starting out here, the good part about that is you have to take some general electives here anyway, so you can use another major to fill up those general electives. All right, so instead of taking badminton, all right, or world geography or something like that just to fill up those hours with general electives, you could take something that would count as a double major and fill up those hours too. You'd probably still graduate with more than 120. Which is fine, that's okay.
Because I was thinking of double majoring in finance and economics. So, and this is actually my first semester because I took a break with us. So who do I talk to about that?
Well, on the economics side, you can talk to me. Or any of the other faculty members I had listed. You can talk to anyone in the Wall Center. On the finance side, same thing. You can talk to anyone in the Wall Center. I would talk to either Dr. Robert Burney or Dr. Ken Small or Dr. Marvin Keene. Dr. Marvin Keene is a finance professor and our department chair, so he could help you on the finance side. I mean, I could help you along with the courses that you would need to take, but as far as talking to them about kind of the similar stuff I talked to you about, while I have some knowledge of that, they're the ones who really know what you would need to do, what classes you would need to take, positions you could look forward to maybe attaining. So I would talk to Marvin Keene would be my first choice because he's our finance professor and department chair. Yeah, but that's a good mix. Economics and finance are a very good mix. Economics and marketing is another very good mix. Yes?
In a corporate company, what would you physically be doing at your job? Like, what would be like a job that you'd be doing?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's a wide open question.
Yeah,
it is incredibly wide open. A friend of mine, when he had his master's degree, he was also at LSU. He went to work for Southwestern Bell in St. Louis, and his job was demand analysis. So, you know, it was the corporate culture, but what he had to do is he had to take all their past sales data on all their various packages and various prices that they've charged over the years, and he anticipated what people's demands for the various phone services would be. But that was because he was very good at math. I mean, he was well, econometrics was his primary field. It's like my third field, and quite frankly, I don't remember much about it anymore, and quite honestly. I just remember the basics anymore. But it was his primary field, and since that was his wheelhouse, so to speak, they put him to work right in that. But let's say that your specialty maybe is the international side, and you've also had some study abroad experience. They might put you in some kind of analyst position on how is this going to affect our potential market in China, something along those lines. I mean, you ask a great question, but there's no one right answer there. The corporation is going to play to your strengths as well as their needs, and hopefully your strengths and their needs will sync up nicely, and that will make you a very valuable asset to them. Yes?
You mentioned terrorism going on in the Middle East and what's happening in Syria. I just want to say it's not a terrorism, it's just a civil war.
No, I wasn't saying.
Middle East, and I'm just saying, just so no one gets the wrong idea here and the bad picture about the Middle East, because everyone has that bad picture about it. I just want to say it's not terrorism. It's just people not liking a president and making a civil war.
No,
It's a civil war.
No, I didn't say terrorism was happening in Syria. I said Syrian uprisings, but.
No, you see the Middle East and what's happening now as a terrorism act. So it's not terrorism. I just want to correct the word. I'm sorry, but it's just civil wars, and a civil war can happen in any country of the world, not only the Middle East.
This is very true, but it's also true that there is terrorism in the Middle East.
Not really.
Okay.
I wouldn't agree.
Well, we agree to disagree.
I really don't agree.
That's fine. That's what makes the world go round. Any other questions?
You've actually touched on a few things that when I'm teaching this class, we talk a lot about critical thinking, decision making, things like that, regardless of the major that they pick. And I think there's some foundations, specifically in the principles classes, the macro and the micro, that regardless of the major that they pick, they're important things that they can take away with regards to decision making. And just like you were talking about, like sunk costs and life being long, and at some point you just have to go, well, forget it, and move on. Talk to them a little bit more about that, how predicting market behavior and all those things that you learned in economics, you can apply them to no matter what the job position is in the business field, I think.
Yeah, one of the things that we talk a lot about in the micro part of the course, part of the curriculum, is why do businesses still stay in business when they're losing money? I mean, it seems like let's just go ahead and shut the doors, right? Well, sometimes it's not that easy to shut the doors in what we would call the short run. And that's when we get into the difference between the fixed costs and the operating costs. And as long as operating costs can be covered, it's probably better for the firm to go ahead and stay in business. Because fixed costs are incurred whether you're producing nothing or you're producing 100 million units. So when you have things like that, when you have issues like that and problems to think about along those lines, you have to also remember that fixed costs are things by definition that are fixed and you can never recover. But as long as the business is covering its operating costs, it's keeping the lights on. It can pay to keep the lights on. It can pay to keep the workers working. It's probably better for it to stay in business.
So did the Hard Rock Park the same?
That one is probably not the greatest example to use.
They were too expensive to get. There was like $50 to get in there for a person. That's why they went bankrupt. I went the first day they opened in there, and I was like, they're going out of business. They have no chance.
Any other questions?
All right, thanks.
All
Appreciate
right.
it.
Okay.